Hey guys, Michael Corsentino for Shutter Magazine. This month we're talking all about gels and the multitude of ways that you can use them, from creative effects to corrective effects and everything in between. So we'll start off looking at some of the images that were featured in this month's article, where I focused more on the creative side of things, using gels for a portrait session of artist Sarah Davis. Where we wanted to create something edgy and cool and different, and something that incorporated some motion and less of a hard-edged digital feeling, but still kind of different and unique and edgy. So gels were the perfect fit for that, along with some constant light and some strobes to freeze a little bit of the action as well. So everything wasn't completely blurry, but we still wanted to incorporate some motion into the images. So we'll start off there. We can just take a look at how I created these, and then we'll jump into some of the more typical uses for strobes as well. I've got some additional images where we can kind of delve into that. So let's start off with this. You can see here some of the images of Sarah from our session, some of the ones that I feel are the strongest images from the session. I think there's a nice contrast going on with the colors, and using that red for the accent light and the blue for the key. I have a lighting diagram in here as well, where we can really dig into the technical stuff, nitty-gritty side of things. But again, this is definitely a more experimental use, and I think that's where the fun is, when you really push the envelope and try different things. And that's definitely what this was all about. So you can see here we've got lots of motion and trails, and that's one of the interesting things also with working with gels. If you are incorporating any kind of motion, you get some really cool painterly kind of light painting motion trails, and you can see that we've got some of that going on here as well. Let's take a look at a couple of the other ones. Here we've got a little bit less motion, but still there's some movement going on. So we kind of experimented and varied with the amount of motion that we had. Some were completely static, and I just did not feel that those were very successful, which is why I didn't include them here. They were sort of dull and really didn't have any kind of pop or sizzle, I guess, for lack of a better term to them. So these were what I thought were the best. And that's really something also to bear in mind, is that with any of these more experimental type techniques, you're going to have more misses than you are going to have hits. So just be patient and be experimental and have fun with it. When they do hit, they're really great, but you have to bear in mind that not everyone's going to be a winner. All right, let's take a look at the technical side of things, how we created this. We've got a lighting diagram here to talk about. So what we did, this is essentially just a standard cross light pattern. You guys have heard me talk about this many times before. It's something that I use, me and probably every other photographer uses often, because it's just a tried and true winner of a lighting pattern, where you oppose your key light with your accent light in a cross pattern like that. Also, I call it access light because the lights are along the same axis facing each other. So we can get rid of that. For my key light, I've got two lights going on here, as well as for my accent light. I've got a constant light here, which is the Lupolux Daylight LED light, and that is going to contribute the motion portion of things when I'm using a longer shutter speed. And I was between 1.6 and 3 seconds for my exposures, for my shutter speed, which is going to grab that motion portion of the exposure. And same thing back here. This one's got red on it, and this one has blue on it. And then for the strobe portion of things, and that the strobes are going to be used to freeze motion, I've got a Profoto 7A with a Mola Demi Beauty Dish here, and this is a Profoto 7A pack and head with a Mola Beauty Dish, a Demi Beauty Dish, and then it's got a grid on here along with blue gel, and then blue gel here. And there was a combination of blue gels that I used on this, so I can't give you the exact numbers, but it's going to be a kind of a season to taste thing when you're doing this, so the specific numbers really don't matter. It would matter more if it was for a specific purpose, like a CTO correction or a CTB correction. Then those numbers would matter more, but this was just more sort of subjective creative decisions. I wanted, the right kind of blue and just the amount of intensity. And so just a combination of gels really created that. And those were from one of the Roscoe packs, which I'll show you later, from the photographic effects pack. And the same thing back here. Here we've got this Lupolux LED, and that's got a red gel on it, and another Profoto Pro Head with some gel on it as well. Additionally, I had a 4x8 black subtraction panel to just pull a little bit of light out of here, just to subtract some light from this side of Sarah's face. I didn't want Sarah's face. One thing that's not included here is on one or two of these, occasionally we brought in a black flag to block some of the light from the key light and keep the light off of Sarah's shoulder, which sometimes was a little too hot and kind of getting in the way of the focus, which I really wanted just on the face, which was part and parcel to using the grid on the beauty dish. It helped to really kind of channel that light and keep it just where I wanted to constrain the light. Let's see what else we've got going on here. I shot this medium format, Phase 1 IQ 250 with a Gitzo tripod and a 3-way tripod head. You need a nice robust tripod when you're working with a medium format camera, so the Gitzos are great for that. And triggers, these were triggered with Pocket Wizard Plus 3s. This is completely manual lighting and manual exposure. I was at f11 for my key light and f8 for my accent light. And then the constant lights were just kind of dialed in intuitively to what looked good for that. Okay, so that's essentially it. I mean, we've got our really beautiful red light coming from here and giving us this really sweet accent light on Sarah's hair. And then we've got our blue key light coming in and lighting up her face all over here and her torso and shoulders and everything else. So that's kind of how the lighting worked for that. We can take a look at these ones more again just to kind of bring home that point. So again, let's bring up a new markup layer here. So that's all our accent light, giving us that red and all down here. And that's going to be, some of that is going to be contributed by the strobe and some by the constant light. And then same thing, pardon me, over here on our key, we've got all that cool blue light happening here. And all that motion, which you can see here and here and here, and all of this sort of blurriness is a function of our constant light. So cool technique, definitely something worth trying. You can see we've got some crispness, and we've also got some blur. So I love that effect. I think it's pretty cool looking. All right. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, here's the gel packs that I was using. These are the new Roscoe kits, and these are really cool for a couple reasons. First of all, as I said in the article, there are like 1,200 different gels and diffusion materials available that Roscoe has, and all sorts of other vendors have as well. Just way too many to make sense of and to know kind of where to start. So aside from just a few of the usual suspects like CTO and CTB, it's kind of like, oh, well, what do I do with these? And, what are they for? Like, what's best practice with these different pieces of colored gel? I don't really know what they're supposed to do, what their purpose is. So these kits, that's really what these kits are all about. They help break it down for you. You can see that there are some that are better for beauty, some that are colored lighting effects, some that are used in film, but they work great for stills. A lot of the effects that you see in films, translate really beautifully for still. Some are good for using at night. There's a diffusion kit, a cal color kit, which is basically primary and secondary colors. Color correction kit, like I talked about, color temperature orange, CTO and CTB, among others, for correcting for fluorescent, etc. And then the photo lighting kit, which is what I used. I pulled the gels from this one for this particular set, and these are 12 by 12 and more for strobes and larger LED lighting fixtures. And then there is another kit with 4 packs that are for speedlights. So for speedlight shooters or strobe shooters or even constant light shooters, there's a little bit of something for everyone. All right, let's take a look at some of the ways that we can use gels aside from this kind of experimental way. Okay, this is an interesting technique. Basically, what you do here is I'm using a CTO gel on my lights. Okay, and this is going to work with constant light, with ambient light and flash on location. Okay, so that's one of the prerequisites for this particular technique. So what you're going to do is you're going to set your camera's white balance to tungsten white balance. And what tungsten white balance, typically we use tungsten white balance inside to cool down the warm light from tungsten lights, from light bulbs. But if you use it outside, it forces everything that is in the ambient light. Let me just get a new markup layer here. It forces all of this to go super, super blue. Okay, and same here. Anything that's not lit by ambient light, we're getting a little spill here, so it's not quite as blue, but it forces anything that is ambient, okay, ambient only, to go really, really blue. But if we don't gel our lights with CTO, color temperature orange gel, which I'm doing here, then these guys would all be in super, super blue. But you can see they're not. They are properly balanced, color balanced, so that they have a nice warm tone. So you've got this warm against cool effect, which is really, really cool. Well, let's get rid of some of these so we can have a new layer to work with. Okay, so again, let me just reiterate that technique. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take CTO gel, color temperature orange gel. Typically I use a full cut for this, but it depends, and that just means the density of the gel. So you can use a half cut, quarter cut, full cut, however much warm tone that you want on your strobed subject is what you're going to put on your flash or your strobe, and that's going to give you that nice proper color balance for your subjects. And then you're going to set your white balance to tungsten, or you're going to dial it in manual. Sometimes I use like 2700. The lower the lower the number, the cooler the effect that you're going to get. So it's a really nice effect. Okay, so that's one way that you can use it, and that's something that I do. It's a lot of fun. Another way is using, again, CTO gel, but this time we're using it to replicate and introduce color to create the look of the sun as an accent light. So basically I'm using that on a gel that's hidden behind this big girder, and that is being used to put this nice warm tone on our model's hair. Okay, and this is cross light again. There's another light over here. I think this one had like maybe a quarter cut CTO just to maintain that warm tone. We had no sun. This was under an overpass in Chicago, so there was no sun. So CTO gel on your speedlights is a great way to replicate the sun when the sun is not there for you, and also to add things like highlights and such like that. So it's a really beautiful way to give a nice warm tone to your photographs. All right, so that's that. And let's just get rid of some of this stuff. Just get rid of that. There we go. Okay. All right, so the other way to use it is to introduce color. We talked about in the article about shooting a gelled strobe onto a white or gray background to change the background color. But you can also change the color of a room that you're in. Say this was on location in a hotel room for a fashion shoot. Just by gelling the flash, and this was pointed directly toward the camera, but hidden behind that door. So that room was, anything but a red room, but I changed the entire mood and feel for the photograph by just gelling the flash with red. So that is another way that you can create some pretty cool effects with gels. So just a few of the different ways that you can work with gels in your photographs. Here's what we did for this particular shoot, but as you can see, there are lots of different ways to work with gels. So I encourage you guys, start getting out there and using gels either on location or in the studio. I think you'll be really happy with the results. There's some pretty cool things that you can do with them. Feel free to hit me up online with questions, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do. Take care.